The Massacre of Batavia, 1740. The Forgotten Slaughter. Batavia, October 1740. The air is thick with smoke and death. The Dutch East India Company has turned this city into a battlefield. Thousands of Chinese men, women, and children run for their lives, but there is nowhere to hide. The streets flow red with blood. This is not war. This is slaughter. This is the story of one of the deadliest massacres in colonial history. A forgotten atrocity buried beneath centuries of silence. Stay until the end to uncover the truth about the Massacre of Batavia. For decades, the Dutch East India Company, known as the VOC, ruled Batavia, modern-day Jakarta, with an iron grip. Chinese immigrants arrived in waves, drawn by the promise of work and opportunity. They toiled in sugar plantations, worked as traders, and built the economy that made Batavia one of the wealthiest colonies in the Dutch Empire. But prosperity does not last forever. As the global sugar market crashes, prices plummet, and Dutch authorities begin to see the Chinese as a threat rather than an asset. Suspicion turns into paranoia. Dutch officials fear that the growing Chinese population will revolt. The VOC imposes harsh new restrictions. Chinese workers are forbidden from carrying weapons, traveling without permission, or gathering in large groups. Tensions rise further as Dutch merchants accuse Chinese traders of manipulating the economy. Anti-Chinese sentiment spreads among the Dutch, settlers, and local Japanese groups. The once thriving Chinese community finds itself isolated, distrusted, and vulnerable. Then the deportations begin. Chinese residents accused of being rebels are rounded up and sent away on ships, but most never reach their destination. At sea, they're thrown overboard or executed without trial. Rumors spread among the Chinese community. They whisper of disappearances, of mass killings disguised as deportations. Anger and fear grip the streets of Batavia. Some call for resistance. Others prepare for war. On the night of October 7, 1740, the first strike comes. Armed Chinese workers rise up against Dutch authority. They storm a VOC outpost, overwhelming guards and setting buildings ablaze. The rebellion has begun. Dutch Governor-General Adriaan Valkenier does not hesitate. He sees an opportunity to crush the Chinese population once and for all. He issues a chilling order: burn their homes, kill them all. The Dutch response is swift and brutal. On October 9, Dutch forces, alongside local militias, launch a merciless assault on Chinese neighborhoods. Armed with muskets, bayonets, and cannons, they sweep through the streets, setting fire to homes, executing anyone in their path. The massacre begins. Panic spreads as entire districts are engulfed in flames. Dutch soldiers kick down doors, dragging out men, women, and children. Some are executed on the spot. Others are thrown into the canals and left to drown. The streets are littered with bodies. Blood flows through the gutters. The Chinese fight back, but they're hopelessly outgunned. They use whatever weapons they can find, knives, farming tools, their bare hands, but it is not enough. Dutch forces move methodically, street by street, house by house, ensuring that no one escapes. For days, the killing continues. Dutch cannons reduce entire sections of Batavia to rubble. Smoke chokes the air as buildings collapse into ash. By the time the massacre ends, more than 10,000 Chinese civilians are dead. The survivors flee the city, seeking refuge in nearby territories, but the scars linger. Batavia will never fade. Some survivors manage to hide in underground shelters or flee to the countryside. They tell of entire families wiped out, of children orphaned, of streets where no one was left alive. Some are captured and sold into slavery. Others live in fear, knowing that returning to Batavia means certain death. The Dutch authorities rewrite the story. They claim the massacre was necessary, that it was a response to an armed rebellion. But the truth is clear. This was not a battle. It was genocide. News of the slaughter spreads across Asia. In China, outrage erupts, but diplomatic ties prevent direct retaliation. In Batavia, the remaining Chinese are. Placed under strict control, their movements monitored, their freedoms stripped away. The once thriving community is shattered. In the years following the massacre, the VOC enforces new policies to prevent future uprisings. Chinese residents are forced to live in designated quarters, isolated from the rest of the city. The Dutch impose heavy taxes and restrict Chinese businesses, ensuring they never regain their former influence. But the massacre leaves a deeper scar. It cements the legacy of colonial brutality in Southeast Asia. The lessons of Batavia serve as a warning. Unchecked power, racial divisions, and economic exploitation can lead to unimaginable horror. Today, Jakarta bears few visible reminders of the massacre. The canals that once ran red with blood now flow undisturbed. The records of those who perished remain incomplete. But history does not forget. Massacre of Batavia was one of the darkest chapters in colonial history. It was a brutal reminder of the cruelty of empire, the price of greed, and the cost of human lives deemed expendable. History repeats itself when we fail to remember. Should colonial powers be held accountable for past atrocities? Let us know your thoughts. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more untold history.